Well, let's carry on. The next sheet to discuss here is MTN. And the big thing with MTN, can you remember a while back, nobody could believe that the stock can ever start to improve again. And maybe some viewers will remember, I actually showed this gap on the program before. Look at this massive gap. If I'm not mistaken, this was the gap when they were fined from a country saying, listen, you owe us some money, and the stock just fell on one heap all the way down to 70 Rand. And I then said, listen, maybe in time to come, this gap can close. Now, what is happening here, and maybe let's just draw in this line. This share is slowly but surely working its way up to close this gap, and it's not far from there. Let's have a look. Of course, there is a gap open as well, and there's another gap. Maybe that's going to close in some time in future. But I think we're not too far to close this gap. And let's see, where's this gap closing? This gap will close at 105.74, and we're now at 102.99. So the big thing here is, and I'm picking up this, that there's a tiny tweezer top developing here. So maybe in this tweezer top, it tells you that the stock can maybe first pull back a little bit lower and then give us a breather and then eventually come and close this gap. So I think if you buy now to get this gap or to close this gap, it's also again too late. In actual fact, there's so many stocks on the market that had this beautiful rally, and I think it's maybe a little bit too late just to get into these stocks. There's one stock that I'm going to show now that I'm quite positive about, and that is Mediclinic International. Somebody also asked me about it and said, Frans, I want to buy this for like an insurance for medical aids. Well, I think it's not a bad idea, because what happens with the medical aids, I mean, it just gets more and more expensive. Now, let's just have a look here. And let's just close that. Yeah, let's just do that. Well, there's your 40-week moving average. I mean, it's still on the sloping to the downside, but there's something that I want to show you. And now, can you imagine, this share comes from 220 Rand, and we showed before that we're seeing a sort of an inverse head and shoulder. Let's first do that so that you can see what I'm showing here. There you are. There's the inverse head and shoulder, and remember, this is now a weekly chart. So it takes out all the noise of the intraday moves on a daily chart. There's the left shoulder. There's the head, and I think we're working on the right shoulder. My big point is this 40-week moving average needs to turn into a support before I know that the momentum can go higher. Now let's just see where this inverse head and shoulder can take us. There's the move. That's from the head to the head to the neckline. Let's just do that. Yeah. If we take it from there, and it can take it, it will take it all the way back to this 40-week moving average, and that is sitting at 69 Rand and 61 cents. I like this share, and there's something else that I like about it. I just want to show you here that I picked it up when a few weeks ago, but it looks like the stock was not performing on that. It was reacting, and look at this volume. There was some two beautiful spikes of volume around these levels of about 57, 58 Rand. That one as well, almost at the 55 Rand level. And now it started to show us that there is some buying also, but I think these two spikes are holding the key. And I like this company. I think we can maybe be surprised that if this neckline, and there's the neckline at 64 Rand and 10 cents, turns into a support, it can give us a move to the upside. You can use the stop loss of 56.25, but I think if you want to nibble, and that's what I said before, I think about 3 or 4 weeks on the show, I cannot remember exactly, I said if the stock starts to consolidate like it's doing now, maybe it's time just to nibble around these levels. The big buying for a medium to a long-term investor will be above 62 Rand and 25 cents, and if you can just look at the stock, there's plenty to go. And the big thing here is, remember, and why I like this company is, you've got the big Remgro group, the management there is fine, they've got plenty capital behind them, and the latest update, and I'm not a fundamental guru, I just say that I've read in the financials that these guys say slowly but surely things are starting to get better. And what I say here is maybe it's early days here, but it's worth a nibble. And if we want to look at another stock that I think maybe we're a little bit late to get in there, and we also called it on the show because somebody said, Frans, can we maybe get into the stock now? It's Master Drilling. I called the stock at around 10 Rand. It's now 10.98. I will say if you want to buy it and you don't want to chase momentum, because as you guys know, I'm not keen on momentum, and maybe wait for it to come back to 10.30, and then at this 40-week moving average, there's the 40-week moving average, that's maybe the time to enter in again. These guys that had this initial rally, good luck to them. If you haven't got the stock, wait for it to give you a pullback, buy it there, make use of a stop loss of 9 Rand and 40 cents, and hopefully this can turn out to be a winner in time to come. Well, one of the other stocks is Klerk, of course. Everybody is talking about Brexit, and everybody is keen there. They say maybe we're going to see a positive outcome there, or at least a solution. And this person would like to see Klerk. Can he buy? Can he not buy? Now, if you look at this stock, look at this. It is still all the way. It came back a little bit. There you are. You can see it came back a little bit. It's moving below the 40-week moving average. But for me, I'm a little bit hesitant on the stock because I want this resistance line to turn into the support. It's almost like, you can say, almost like a Mediclinic International. You can maybe buy it and just hold on a little bit. And I think let us only buy when this resistance line breaks, because what's nice about this resistance line, it's not that far. When it crosses, it's not that far from its 40-week moving average. Now that 46 Rand and 5 cents there, that is the 40-week moving average. So probably nibble above there, because what I don't like about the stock, it's still making a low and a lower and a lower high, where with Mediclinic International you start to see a consolidation and a beautiful inverse head and shoulder, and that is positive. Well, one of the other stocks is, of course, Kumba. I mean, can you believe it? I mean, this stock had another beautiful rally. I mean, they had their special circumstances of the Vale project that couldn't produce iron ore. And if I look at the stock, I'm getting a little bit nervous. And the reason why I don't like this company, well, there's nothing wrong with the company, why I don't like the chart, is that there's a little bit of a breakaway gap. This gap worried me a few days ago, because you usually find that if it comes back, it closes it within a day or two, and then the trend will swing to the other side. But what happened here is we had this breakaway gap all at the top, and it did not manage to close it as yet. And this little two shadows, there's an upper shadow, there's another upper shadow. These two upper shadows makes me a little bit nervous, because that is what you can call almost a tweezer top in the making. Now, I know it's starting to slowly but surely coming back. And if I look at this chart here, let's have a look here. The big thing for this chart is, excuse me, if it goes below 435.51 cents, it can easily go much lower. Reason being, because then we can say that this stock is properly in place. What I will say is, sometimes you do find, and that's what I want, is that it goes back to this line of 435.51. It bounces off there, and then it gives you like a head and shoulder formation. Then you've got a left shoulder there, then you've got a head, and then you're developing on a right shoulder. Now, if that's the case, and then if this neckline breaks, then I'll be very nervous on Kumba, because usually a head and shoulder formation, as I said many a time in the program, usually a head and shoulder formation or a double top. Now, this is a tweezer top. A double top usually calls for a proper correction in the stock. And what makes me a little bit nervous is the following. If we come back, look at this rally. This is almost a straightaway rally, all the way from about 240 Rand from about December last year. I mean, from 240 to 480, it has doubled itself within a matter of 4 months. And that is always not a sign to make me nervous, but it just is a sign of caution. And just say, can you maybe expect a pullback? Yes, you can. And remember, if you expect a pullback, sometimes the pullback can be nasty. And I just want to put in the stochastic here, because I've got an idea it was overbought or very close to overbought. Let's have a look here. And then we'll see there you are. Well, yes, there you can see a clear a divergence, a negative divergence. That makes me a little bit nervous. There you are. There's the negative divergence. This actually told us before that the stock has maybe rallied just a little bit too hard, and now the momentum is swinging to the downside. That makes me a little bit nervous on the stock. And the last one that we want to discuss is, let's Sabanya. I mean, how can we not forget about that one? Because this stock is also one of the favorites of the market, but then there was an ugly strike and the stock almost fell on a heap. And let's just go there. All right, there you are. And what did we see? There was a tweezer top. It came back, and now suddenly after the strike, or where they arranged something, beautiful bullish candle. In actual fact, I will say it's maybe if you do want to buy it and you want to maybe close these gaps, and let's just give the levels of the gap, 1585, and the low there is 1688. Maybe if you want to buy on this beautiful candle here, and this is a shaven top. Now a shaven top is a positive candle. Let's just use this little resistance line there. There you are. There you are. Oh yes, right at the top there. If you want to buy above 14 Rand 40, make use of a stop loss of 13 Rand and 23 cents. And maybe if you're lucky, it can close this gap. But the only thing that worries me a little bit, remember the same thing with Sabanya. It had a beautiful rally, and I hope I'm wrong. Let's just have a look here. Now I draw this line in. What do we see here? Exactly what I showed now on Kumba. I'm just a little bit nervous there. There's your left shoulder. There's the ugly head. And maybe we're working on the right shoulder. Now there's nothing wrong for the share to maybe just go and close this window and then start to turn around. So for me, out of a trader's perspective, this will be only a trader's buy and not for medium to long term. Thank you so much. All the best.